And we are not starting today with accountability or organizational dysfunction or rotation failures or any of the documented patterns that have defined the conversation around this team all season. Today we start with 32 points and 10 assists and 7 rebounds and 13 free throw attempts and 13 free throw makes, and the most complete individual performance this Indiana Fever season has produced from the player this franchise was built around. Caitlin Clark did not just win a basketball game against the Chicago Sky last night, she delivered a masterclass performance against a team that threw everything available at her defensively and found out what every other opponent this season has found out when she is operating at full capacity. There is no answer, there is no scheme, there is no defensive assignment or coverage rotation or personnel combination that contains what she does when the organizational environment gets out of the way and lets her play. 32 points, 10 assists, 7 rebounds, 8 of 18 from the floor, 13 of 13 from the free throw line. Those numbers do not arrive from a player who is being managed or suppressed or worked around. Those numbers arrive from a player who was given enough runway in enough stretches of this game to show exactly what she is capable of when the ball finds her, and the system trusts her to make the right decision with it. This is what the WNBA paid for when it signed those broadcast deals. This is what the networks put on national television. This is what casual fans became invested in, and what die-hard supporters have been waiting to see unleashed fully and consistently across a complete game. The GOAT was cooking. The numbers prove it. The Chicago Sky had no answer for it. That is the only place worth starting today.
Kelsey Mitchell and Stephanie White. Guilt mode, 32-point double-double. Talk about a masterclass performance. It was nothing the Chicago Sky could do to stop Caitlin Clark. Let's go, let's go, let's go. How about that performance?
Context matters when you discuss what happened in that game last night between Clark and Boston. Not just the numbers, the historical weight of the numbers. First teammates in WNBA history to both record 30-point double-doubles in the same game. Not first this season, not first in recent memory, first in the history of the league. Clark with 32 points and 10 assists. Boston with 34 points and 12 rebounds. Two players operating at the absolute peak of their individual capabilities simultaneously and producing a combined statistical output that the league has never seen from two players sharing the same roster in the same game. That is not a regular season performance marker. That is a legacy data point, the kind of number that gets referenced in historical conversations about what this era of WNBA basketball was capable of producing when the right players were assembled around each other and trusted to execute. And here is what makes that historical achievement land with the specific weight it carries in the context of this season. These two players produced it despite the organizational environment surrounding them, not because of it. Clark has spent this season being benched on predetermined schedules, denied shots in fourth quarters, and routed around in play designs that consistently prioritize other options. Boston has spent this season operating within a system that has not always maximized what her skill set in combination with Clark's creates. They made history anyway, together, in the same game, against a team that had no personnel capable of slowing either of them down when both were operating at that level simultaneously. The best duo in the league declaration is not hyperbole. It is the factual conclusion of a historical statistical record established last night, and the qualifier attached to it is equally accurate. When the coaching staff gets out of the way and lets these two operate in the two-man game action that the data consistently identifies as the most effective offensive combination on this roster, the results speak for themselves in the language of WNBA history. Last night, those results spoke at a volume the record books will be carrying for a long time.
Check this out. How about it, man? How about it? Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, man, the first teammates in WNBA history with 30-point double-doubles. The first teammates in the history of the game, in the league, with 30-point double-doubles. Aaliyah Boston, 34 and 12. Caitlin Clark, 32 and 10. She had another 7 boards to go with it. This is the best duo in the league when that bonehead coach Stephanie White gets the hell out the way.
The Chicago Sky entered last night's game as one of the least competitive rosters in the WNBA. Their record reflects it. Their personnel reflects it. Their coaching staff situation reflects it. Indiana should have been separating from this opponent in the third quarter and managing a comfortable lead through the fourth without the game ever approaching the kind of late game pressure situation that produces overtime. Instead, Indiana blew a 19-point lead and needed overtime to survive. The specific sequence this clip documents is the most direct evidence of why that happened and who is responsible for it. Up 5 with a minute remaining against a team that had no business being in that game, Mitchell gets a steal, pushes in transition, and forces a layup attempt instead of pulling the ball out and running the clock down. The layup misses. The possession that should have ended the game instead extended it, then the inbound situation. Clark on the floor, 11 of 11 from the free throw line at that point in the game. The correct decision in that moment has one name attached to it. Get the ball to the player who has not missed a free throw all night and let the free throw line end the game. Instead, the inbound goes to Mitchell. It goes off her leg out of bounds. Skylar Diggins catches the loose possession situation and converts a 3 to send the game to overtime. 2 possessions. 2 decisions that defied the available evidence about which player on that floor was the most reliable option in a late game pressure situation. Both decisions produced the worst possible outcome. Both decisions were made when the correct alternative was standing on the floor with the best free throw performance of the night already documented in the box score. Basketball IQ in late game situations is not a complicated concept. You identify your most reliable closer and you get them the ball. Indiana had that player available and kept finding reasons to give it to someone else. The overtime was not bad luck. It was the predictable result of decisions that ignored what the game had already documented.
We're up 5 with 1 minute left. Yo ass go run in and throw up a layup and miss it. Bring the ball out, run the clock. You're up 5 with a minute left. Why are you trying to force it? Bro, you can't be that thirsty to try to score 20 points every time. You can't be acting that thirsty to try to score 20 points every single time. It's ridiculous, Kelsey. I'm disgusted with the stuff you did down the stretch. That was a dumbass play. That was selfish.
The pattern is now a 2-game documented sequence, and the documentation gets more specific with every entry it adds. Washington game winner from 32 feet. Clark rescues a coaching staff that nearly surrendered a 17-point lead against an opponent missing key personnel. 1 game later, 32 points and 10 assists against Chicago. Clark carries an offense through 40 minutes of basketball, gets to the free throw line 13 times, and converts every attempt and personally prevents a 19-point lead from becoming a regulation loss through sheer individual performance. 2 games. 2 organizational rescues. 1 player responsible for both outcomes. The thank you acknowledgement this clip demands from the coaching staff and from Mitchell specifically is not a dramatic content creator request. It is the bare minimum professional response to a player who has now twice in consecutive games prevented the consequences of coaching decisions and teammate execution failures from arriving at their natural conclusion. White has been given a 2-game grace period by the player her organizational decisions have been systematically working against all season. The rotation failures did not cost Indiana these games because Clark was good enough in the moments that mattered to overcome the competitive deficits those failures created. Mitchell's late game decision making did not cost Indiana these games because Clark converted 13 consecutive free throws and hit a pull-up game winner to neutralize the damage. The question this 2-game sequence forces into the organizational accountability conversation is straightforward. What?
Stephanie White, you better be getting to this podium and saying thank you, because 2 games in a row, Caitlin Clark done saved your sorry ass. Let's be real here. Let's be real here. Caitlin Clark has got you off the hook 2 games in a row. You better be appreciative. You better have some better energy in that post-game locker room. Kelsey Mitchell, she saved your ass again today too. She saved you today too. That was 2 idiotic plays down the stretch. Why are we forcing the ball to Kelsey Mitchell down the stretch?
What happens in a game where Clark does not have a 32-point performance available to bail out the decisions being made around her? What happens when the predetermined substitution schedule costs Indiana a lead and Clark comes back to a deficit too large to overcome individually? What happens when the inbound play goes to the wrong player and the game ends before Clark gets a chance to fix it? Those games have already happened this season. The difference between those outcomes and these 2 is not organizational improvement. It is individual heroism from the player the organization keeps designing plays away from. 2 games in a row, she saved the people who keep failing her. The accountability conversation does not pause for winning streaks. 2 consecutive games. Two performances that belong in the conversation about the best individual stretches this WNBA season has produced. A game winner from 32 feet, followed by a 32.10 assist double-double that made WNBA history alongside Aaliyah. Boston. The numbers are real, the historical significance is real, the wins are real, and the organizational dysfunction that made both performances necessary rescue operations rather than comfortable victories is equally real and equally documented. Indiana nearly lost to Washington before the game winner. Indiana blew a 19-point lead to Chicago and needed overtime to survive. Both near disasters trace back to the same documented patterns this season has been producing since its opening weeks. Rotation decisions that remove the best player from the floor during active leads. Late game possession management that routes the ball away from the most reliable option available. A coaching philosophy that the opposing teams have confirmed publicly they have completely scouted and solved. Clark overcame all of it twice in a row. That is the story of these two games. Not organizational improvement, not tactical evolution. Individual brilliance applied as a correction to institutional failures that keep producing the same near misses against opponents this roster should be handling comfortably. The historic double-double with Boston is the clearest possible evidence of what this team is capable of when the two-man game action is allowed to operate without constant interference. From a rotation philosophy that the data has consistently identified as working against Indiana's competitive interests. First teammates in WNBA history with 30-point double-doubles in the same game. That record belongs to the players. It was produced despite the environment around them, not because of it. The wins are in the record, so is everything that nearly prevented them. Both deserve acknowledgement. Neither is going away.